Welcome to the inUpowers podcast, where we give a name and a face to emotion. We discuss the real and raw when it comes to mental and emotional health. We are here to teach you that emotions are information and behavior is a choice. We want to help you make safer connections through healthy communication by empowering you to understand what your emotions are telling you. I'm your host, Tami. Let's get started. Welcome to the inUpowers podcast. I'm Tami.
And I'm Nikki.
And today, for our Moments Minute, we want to talk about perspective. We want to talk about opinions and different ways to see the same thing, and why it's important to see things differently and to have the courage to see it the same. Nikki and I were actually talking about this a little bit before we started, and we were talking about perspectives and opinions in society. So what are you thinking?
Well, I was talking about perspective is how you see something, right? And we all can see things differently, especially if we're looking at a statue, for example, and I'm on one side and you're on the other. You're going to see something different than I see on my side. Or if you see it from above or below or from the side, it's the same statue, but we see a different perspective of that statue. And I think we forget that we all see things differently and that it's okay to see things differently and that we need to be open to seeing things from other people's advantage point, or perspective. Now, does that mean we have to agree all the time? No, but we don't need to be disagreeable. And I think that's part of the problem that we're having, that we have to think it's all about being right instead of what's actually
Well, and there's more than one right.
Yeah.
It's okay that there's 4 different right answers because you are on 4 different vantage points of the same statue.
Exactly.
And so we need to be, there's an old parable about elephant. They had a bunch of wise men go blindfold to the elephant, and one was on the trunk, and one was on the ears, and one was on the tail, and one was on the leg, and one was with the skin. And one of them described it like a snake. And he's like, well, you're wrong, because I feel this floppy, very fan-feeling thing. That's what an elephant is. And then I was like, no, you're wrong. It's like a tree trunk. It's very, it's sturdy and heavy, and it's immovable, and it's thick and round. And the person that was on the tail is like, it's thin with a ball, like a small ball, like it's not a snake at all. And then the person with the tusk is like, no, they were all looking at the same thing, but because they all were looking without their eyes and they were describing something totally different because they were all on a different piece of it, or we are all looking at a statue in a different way. And I feel like we get so stuck in our own ways, the way we've done things always, or the way we've been taught that society should be, or how we perceive, and even in our feeds, they cater them to ourselves, right, or to us. And so we get very our view, and we have come from very political societies, and in the world there's wars, and we're not learning from each other. We're fighting each other over what we see and how we see it.
Right. Something can be as simple as I would take a snake over a spider any day. And that's because spiders creep me out. And other people are like, heck no, I'll take the spider over the snake. And I'm like, nope. Sorry, no spiders here, and it's just because our viewpoints, I get more creeped out by a spider, whereas someone else gets more creeped out by a snake. Doesn't mean either one of us is wrong. It's about our preference and our opinions and things like that. But it doesn't mean, well, I can't talk to you because you like snakes and I don't, or you like spiders and I don't. That's just how we see things. I feel more creeped out this way. You don't. Okay. That's fine,
That's great.
And stuff. But we tend to take things, our opinions on different matters, from political matters to educational matters to parenting to whatever, to religion. And if we don't have the same perspective, then I'm not going to talk to you. And I can learn so much from other people who don't share the same perspectives as me.
Right.
That doesn't, they're still a human being and stuff. And I can learn from their culture and their ideas and their perspective just as much as they can learn from mine. If we had to recreate that statue, and it would take all four of us on each side and those in between to get it right, and to, because I only see the one side. So it's sad that we can't have our own perspectives and get along and still be kind to one another. It just boggles my mind because I don't think that way. But somebody else will have a different perspective, and that's okay too. It's that whole idea that it's okay to disagree but not be disagreeable, and somehow along the way we have lost that. And I'll tell you what, it must be as we become older, because I was talking with my fourth graders about that, because I was like, they're like, what do you mean? And I was telling them, mate, well, what's your favorite ice cream? And he was like, vanilla. I said, sorry, you gotta go, we gotta leave. And he's like, what? And I'm like, mine's chocolate. And so since yours isn't like mine, bye, see ya. I don't want you in my class anymore. And
I bet he was like, what?
Yeah, and he knew I was kidding because I've done things like that before. But they were like, but why? What does it matter if he likes vanilla? And I'm like, well, you tell me. And we ended up having this great discussion about we can still get along. He can have his vanilla and I can have my chocolate and we can still be in the same room, And I'm like, well, then why can't we? Why do we treat people, if I don't root for this sports team, I can't be your friend? If you root for that, oh, I can't talk to you anymore. I don't like you, And it seems silly to say that shouldn't happen, but it does. Whether, like I said, political beliefs, sports teams, rivals, our community has a big rival with the next town over and it's ridiculous.
It really is.
I mean, it's great to have a rival for fun, but it's gotten past for fun, and stuff like that. So like we've like ingrained this hostility towards this other town, and like it shouldn't be like that. It should be just for fun. But yeah, no, we take it to the extreme to where we think that we can't talk to someone or associate with someone because we do have different perspectives on different topics and things. So, but doesn't mean we're wrong.
No, and I think a lot of times it comes out of wanting control.
Yeah.
I think we want to control our environment. We want to control our friendships, and the world has gotten a lot more that we can. We can play. Kids in the neighborhood aren't playing as much as they used to.
Right.
They have controlled play dates because it's protected. And when we get jobs, we normally get degrees or go to jobs that are like-minded. And so we tend to go in places like I wouldn't go become a teacher. That's not what I went to school for. That's not my talent. I mean, I think I can teach, but at the same time, I definitely don't want to control a room of fourth graders, especially 25 of them. That is not, and to read to them, that's like a nightmare for my brain. And so I'm in an environment that is more like me, like when I did hair. And so I was in the salon environment and things like that. Now people came into my chair that had different perspectives in life, but I was still in my safe environment. And I think we feel like we're losing control when somebody has another perspective, and we tend to get defensive.
Yes. Well, we talked about earlier that people tend to think that the world revolves around them.
Yes.
And that there's no other outside opinions or views from the millions of people on this planet. That people, how can they possibly think differently than me? Because my life revolves around me, which is true to an extent, but
your life does revolve around you.
Right.
Your life is your control.
Right.
However, you're only in control of your life.
Right.
And your choices. And you don't get to choose how your choices make somebody else feel.
Or your
act.
Ideas or your thoughts and processes and your ideologies can't control someone else. And I think that is like what you're saying, this control. You can't control the narrative all the time. And that should be okay.
Yes.
Think about people who are colorblind. You could tell them all day long that that's red and that's purple and that's blue. But if they're red-blue colorblind, they're not going to see it. And it doesn't matter how you try to convince them. There's no way that you could change their mind because they can't see it because they're colorblind.
Well, I'm tone deaf. And so it's part of my brain problems and stuff like that. And so I can't hear like I don't hear tones like everybody else. And I've had people tell me that I was lying, that I was tone deaf. And I have two voice teachers that gave my parents money back because I was tone deaf, because we were trying to make me sing, or trying to help me sing, which is perfect when I was a child. That's what you do. You learn
Try
to sing
different things, yeah.
Right. And I had this one voice kid that was in music. We live in a college town. I was doing hair at the time. And he was like, that's not true. You can hear sound. And I can hear sound. And I can hear fluctuation, but I feel it more. And he was like, well, how do you know when to shift gears? I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, don't you hear they go up and down and up and down? And I'm like, no, it goes faster. And then that's when I know to shift. And he goes, what? I go, no, I can feel it. And so I was telling my friend that I was working with that, and I was telling her that I can't sing, and she goes, well, let's practice this, because she did voice lessons and things. And she had me go up and down with her, and I couldn't match it. I couldn't match it to save my life. And then she goes, and when I hit it, I could feel in my chest I was on key, but I couldn't hear it. And it was the strangest thing to me. And people are always like, oh, just sing. And I'm like, I don't know. Because I think I'm on tune, but I can't hear it. I don't know. I'm learning to feel it, but it's still something I can't do. It's not an excuse. It's
right,
just how I'm made.
But it's all that different perspective. I mean, it's just like with music. People have different perspectives of music and styles of music that they like, you know, whether or not someone's a good singer or not a good singer. Like all those shows on television that we would watch with the singing competitions.
Yes.
And you're like, how could you think they were a good singer? I don't think they're good at all. I thought this other one was better, you know. But again, it's all about perspective. Just yesterday, because yesterday was a Sunday and there happened to be a football game on, and my son was getting super heated, you know, and because he has some very strong opinions on certain players and certain teams, and that's brought people to blows. You know, just for sports teams and stuff like that, and who's better and who's not better, you know.
And most of those players don't even know you're having those fights about them.
Oh, I know.
And we get so involved, and it's wonderful. We as a human family need to cheer for someone, and we need to watch people lose. That is good for us. That is how we are built to be, and that's how we connect and how we unify. And it's okay to have a different opinion. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to have the courage to see it another way. In fact, in the inUpowers program, POP, Progress Over Perfection, has perspective discernment glasses. And his glasses have a P and a D in it. And it's meant to see that if you were on either side of that letter, you would see either a P or a D. And he reminds us that we as a human family need to have enough courage to see it another way. And if we're not invited to see it that way, to find a way to see it the other way. I think a lot of times we need the invitation. We're scared to just invite ourselves or ask or have the courage to see it another way because we're afraid it's going to shake our beliefs or it's going to undo what we know. And it could.
Yeah, and I think we also need to be open to that there's other perspectives. Because I think about my husband, right? And some of the conversations we've had, like, he's like, I wasn't even thinking that. And I, this whole time, thought he was thinking one way and he was doing something for one reason and it was actually completely for another, you know? And I didn't even think about it being that way. You know, it never even crossed my mind, you know? And so instead of just assuming,
right,
you know, someone's perspective, asking them for it, and then being willing to open your mind to it. Or even like, I love having discussions at work because I see things differently than you do.
Yes.
And I remember our discussion about the in the ways and out of the ways, and I wasn't understanding it. And so I'm like, no, you've got to explain this to me because I'm not seeing it this way. And we had that really good discussion about it, and it wasn't because you were wrong or I was wrong. I didn't see it your way and you weren't seeing it my way. And so it wasn't like we threw in the towel or anything. I was trying to see it from your way and you were trying to see it from my way. And then eventually you were like, okay, I get it now. I get it. Okay, I understand. All right, okay, I got it. You know, sometimes it takes a group of people with different lifestyles, different brains and stuff to hear the different suggestions. Even in teaching my team, you know, we would come in and discuss, you know, where kids are struggling with this. What do you think? How can we help them with this math or this, that, or the other, and we would sit there and discuss it out, and it would be great because my colleagues would be like, well, if we do it like this and this might happen. Oh, I never even thought about it that way. Or,
Right.
because you weren't on that track. And so when you sit there and discuss it and you can see it from different points of view, you're able to then make a better decision about the whole,
Right.
and stuff. And so I love being able to do that, and having that open mind to see things from other people's perspectives.
And if you have confidence, it doesn't shake your foundation. It
Yeah.
educates you.
Exactly.
And it's okay if you were wrong. That I've seen things and I have been so off from what I saw. Or I hear things and I definitely have been off because I don't hear things correctly. And so by recognizing that it's okay to be flawed, or it's okay to be taught,
Yeah.
or to take away the control that you think you have to have
Well, about being right.
about being right.
That you don't always have to be right, or there's a better way to do something. Your idea still could have been great, but there was a better one. Like, for example, on my education team, there was a better one that was going to help the kids more. And at the end of the day, it wasn't about whose idea it was or whose did we pick and making sure we take turns on whose idea we pick. It was what was best for the kids. At the end of the day, what is best for the kids. And so it wasn't about being right, it wasn't about being wrong, or who was the brains behind it. It was, we listened, we talked it out, we all the ins, outs, and the others, the positive, negative about a thing, and then made the choice about which best for the kids. And so if you can realize that it's not about being right, like if you're in a board meeting or a meeting at work or whatever, it's about what's best for the company or the most right thing, that it's not about you being right. It's about learning and growing.
Right.
And your knowledge. And it's okay if you have differences of opinions. It's
absolute-
not the end of the world.
Well, and it's
if
great.
you like chocolate ice cream more than vanilla. Or like me, who can't stand mint. And everybody's like, what? How can you not like mint? Mint's the best. Sorry. Not from my perspective. It's not like they're not going to talk to me anymore because of it.
Right.
And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. You can have your opinion. I can have mine. We see things differently, and that's okay. And I don't have to be in control all the time. I don't have to be right.
And I think in conversation, there's ways to open up the dialogue to see it somebody else's way without threatening them to feel defensive. I find that when somebody's telling me something and I don't understand it or I don't agree with it, I ask them to teach me.
Yeah, you do actually. Teach me about that.
Yeah, because if you can teach me, I can grow my information, I can learn more, and I can learn more about you. Because in the world, I want to see it farsighted. I want to see the long view. I don't want to see today comfortable. I want to see our tomorrows better. Mm-hmm. And so I want the long view. I want to be able to see everybody's perspective. I want to see why it looks like this and why it feels like that and what would happen if that did happen. It's very much part of my personality, but I also think sometimes we need to learn that language because as parents to teachers or parents to teachers or bosses or managers or directors to employees, I think we have come up with comic strips and reading stories and watching TV shows that the boss just tells you how it is and you're supposed to, or the teacher tells you how it is or the parent tells you how it is and that's how it's supposed to be. But I believe the best leaders, teachers, and mentors are ones that can be taught.
Yeah.
And ones who can see it another way. I know that we say a lot about social media or the texting. I can't tell you how much I'm learning from the generation that are becoming parents with their ability to adapt and to see the greater good and to put time with family and work instead of just straight work, or to be accepting and more loving and enduring in certain ways that our generation, that was just unacceptable. And I appreciate them teaching me because my generation isn't any better than any other generation. It's just different.
Right. Because our perspectives are different.
And our environment was different. A phone for me was like a private phone call with the extra long cord.
Yeah.
Like I got to go into another room and shut the door. And I didn't take a bazillion selfies of me because cameras were brought out for birthday parties and things like that. 'Cause you had to buy the film and develop the film.
Right.
So like I'm ancient for those of you who are listening to me. However, we are also learning how to do all the things that are natural for these next generations.
It's so true. I think keeping an open mind,
right,
and a willingness to learn doesn't mean you have to change your perspective when someone tries to teach you, but you can listen and be an open mind and be willing to realize that we don't see things the same way, and that's okay.
And I love that you said listen. I think sometimes we listen to respond instead of listen to actually learn.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking...
like saying, do you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you, but did you hear me? Did you understand what I said? Did you feel my feelings behind it? Did you understand where I was coming from? Did you feel my passion for it? That's what I mean by hearing me. Not just, did you hear sound coming in your ears?
Right. Were you just coming back with did I get you to the defensive space? And I think that's what we want to talk about with perspective, is that it's okay to be open and to listen and to know that there's so many ways to see the same thing and that we are better together and we can learn so much from each other.
And we can live in harmony.
Yes, we can.
We can live in harmony with the different perspectives that we have and can teach each other and be around each other and live in harmony. There's no reason to have contention.
And we don't need to be under threat.
Right.
There's no reason. You don't need to defend your truth. You just need to be able to teach what you know so that they can learn from you too. It's not always a fight. It's information. And
exactly.
One of the things you kept saying too is open. And in our B-hole it is, I am building enough worthy, healing, open, living, and empowered. And I love that open. It sounds vulnerable, but that is where the most power is when you're vulnerable enough to truly listen and care and want to see it another way.
You're so good at that.
You're sweet. I'm not, but I want us to be better at that.
She is.
And so while you're thinking and while you listen this week, just look at it another way. Find the courage to be open and listen. And if you need some language to see it another way or to get more insight from the world, ask people to teach you or show me, and be open to truly being present while they teach. And remember,
emotions are information.
And behavior's a choice. See you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the inUpowers podcast. We are grateful you are here. Please share this podcast with those you know who might need it, and follow and rate us so we can continue providing this podcast to you. Follow us on social media to see more visuals about the inUpowers, and join us next week for another episode. Until then, remember, the power to choose is in you.